All right. Good evening. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals. It's Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. Sherry, could you please take attendance?
Tom Schultz,
Here.
Dennis Dorner,
Present.
Robert Morrison. Bertrand Schmitz. Here. Maureen Jaffe. Here. Maureen Noonan. Here. Teresa O'Rourke.
Here. Thank you. Tom, as a secretary, could you please read the legal notice of public hearing?
The Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals, Andrews Memorial Hall, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, 06413. Town of Clinton, legal notice of public hearing. The Town of Clinton Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a hybrid public hearing on Wednesday, September 18, 2024 at 7 p.m. on Zoom and in the Rose Room of the William Stanton Andrews Memorial Town Hall, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, to consider the following. A, ZBA 24-2, 15 Kelsey Road. Joe Wren, applicant, Jean Giulitti, owner, application for certificate of variance of section 26.8.2, tidal wetlands buffer for replacement residence, sanitary septic system, and associated improvements. Assessors map 69, block 66, lot 16, zone R-10. At said hearing, all persons will have the right to be heard and written communication received. The applications and accompanying maps and correspondence are available for public inspection in the land use office of the town hall. Laurie Jaffe, Chair, Town of Clinton ZBA, email to the Harbor News to appear 2 times on Thursday, September 5, 2024, and Thursday, September 12, 2020.
Thank you, Tom. The next item on the agenda are the minutes. First is review and approval of July 17th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. I do have a proposed correction, and then if anyone else does, we can go from there. The correction is actually on page 404 of the minutes, based on the footer, not the header, which says page 202, but the last page. The sentence actually starts on page 3 or 4, the sentence that starts with L. Jaffe stated her position, et cetera, and my proposed correction is at the very end of the sentence, where it now reads a personal hardship period. Before the period, I'm requesting to add rather than a legal hardship. So that clause will read, and there is a personal hardship rather than a legal hardship. I believe that more accurately represents what I said in the meeting. Does anyone else have any proposed corrections to these minutes? I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes as corrected. Thank you. A second?
I'll second. Who made that motion?
And Bert seconded it. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Stay.
None.
Yes. I was not there.
And then the motion passes. Okay, the second item is on the minutes, August 21st, the August 21st, 2024 regular meeting was canceled, so there are no minutes. That meeting. Chair comments is next on the agenda. And I do not have any comments. Number 4 on the agenda is receipt of applications. Carrie, have any been received?
No, there's none.
Item number 5 on the agenda, hearing DBA 24-4, 10 Kelsey Road, Lisa Vumbach appellant, Lisa Vumbach and Christine Marotta, property owners, appeal of the cease and correct order for discharge of water onto Kelsey Road, issued on July 12, 2024. By certified zoning enforcement officer Kathleen S. Savona, assessors map 69, block 66, lot 74, zone R10. This matter has been postponed to October 16, 2024, at the request of Ms. Vumbach. So this matter will not be heard this evening. Item number 6, public hearing. ZBA 24-2, 15 Kelsey Road, Joe Wren applicant, Jean Giulitti, again, I apologize if it's pronounced wrong, owner. Application for certificate of variance, section 26.8.2, title wetlands buffer for replacement residence. Assessors map 69, lot 66, lot 16, zone R10. Very briefly, how this will work this evening is the applicant will present his case. The board will ask questions and make comments. Staff will have an opportunity to make comments. We will address the record. The materials that have been filed are part of the record. At that point, I will ask if there's any public testimony in favor of, opposed to, or neutral about this application. And then the board will decide if the public hearing should be closed. And if it is closed this evening, we'll proceed to deliberation. So we can begin.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Joe Wren, engineer and principal of Indigo in Old Saybrook. Mr. and Mrs. Giulitti are with us this evening too, in the front row and front left. In case there are any questions related to the owner. This application, as we mentioned, is 15 Kelsey Road. There is an existing home on the property that's very non-conforming. What we've done on the site plan that you have in front of you is highlighted the existing home in color with its decks and over. You can clearly see the extent of it. On this plan that I have on the board, I also highlighted the yard setback, the tidal wetland, the edge of the tidal wetland, and then in pink, the 50-foot tidal wetland. So the existing home is with this angled dash line highlighted in yellow. You can see that it's clearly over the front yard setback, clearly extends fairly far into the tidal wetland setback. Did everyone see this okay? It's always angled, everyone will see it. So those pieces are there. There is a septic tank and a septic field in the backyard that's within this rectangle as shown, and that gets as close as a little bit more than 7 feet to the edge of the tidal wetland. So with the proposal that be abandoned and then a new septic be installed. So it's part of the overall plan. The ground elevation rises. So that's the better soil conditions further away from the groundwater table. So we added a leaching area in the front, removing it from the back, close proximity of the wetlands, close to the street, outside of the buffer. That leaching field, the entire septic system has been approved by CRAD. We should have that approval as part of the overall. There's no additional room in the front or in the sides to fit the tank in the pump chamber. So those were put as close to the structure as possible in the back, thereby maximizing the distance from the tidal wetlands. And as you can see, its closest point is to the small pump chamber. Another thing that we did back there is we used a smaller than normal pump chamber that meets code so that we get further from the tidal wetland. So those two items are as far as can be. As I mentioned, the existing system is only 7 feet, and this is a water type tank. And now it's a little over 26 feet away, and that's the closest item to the tidal wetland. So we've almost quadrupled the distance away. And the difference is that it's an underground water tight tank, so nothing leaks out there. This here is the leaching field, so that leachate gets into, very close proximity to the top well. Now the leaching field is. We've also implemented a permeable stone driveway to, reduce coverage on site and reduce stormwater runoff. And the building itself is designed to, as you can see, fit inside the setbacks, to make the coverage conforming. And to get the majority of the building as much as possible with the proposed decks and the corners out of the 50-foot wetland area as much as possible. We are as far, I guess on this plan, as south, close to the road as possible. Since we have our septic field in the back and the front, we have minimum distance to the property line, minimum distance to the house, and then the house, of course, so everything is, these distances to the tidal wetlands are maximized. There's been many reductions or eliminations of existing nonconformities. And if you refer to the zoning table in the upper left-hand corner there, the middle column is existing conditions, and if you go through those, you can see that front yard setback is non-conforming. The moving down the list, rear yard setback is conforming as well. Type of wetland setback, we show those distances in there. It's about 36 feet to the deck. There is a shed back there too that I forgot to mention. That shed is being removed out of. So that's listed in the table, and then 7.3, as we mentioned, to the existing. It's currently a one-story house. The building height is currently less than 35 feet. The maximum ground coverage is presently 32.4%. So grossly non-conforming to the 20% allowed in the zones, more than 12% over 15 double. And the floor area obviously works with the. So for the proposed zone, everything is proposed to be conforming with including the coverage, with the exception of some elements within the tidal wetland buffers. Two variances requested, or the variance requested is the tank, as we mentioned, the pump chamber being less than 50 feet to the tidal wetland, and then portions of the proposed house being within that 50 foot. They're enumerated in the table. Closest point of the house is 42.3. So 7.7 feet away from the full 50. And then the 26.2 is the nearest part of the septic system. Now to that line. So those are the only variances that we have by using a permeable driveway, shrinking the footprint of the house and things that come with coverage. We reduced the ground coverage from the non-conforming 32.4 down to conforming 14.7% below the 20%. The house is, of course, in a flood zone. It's all designed to be in the flood zone. The engineer had to review that. It is elevated with garage level, the lower level being FEMA compliant. There are flood vents around the house as shown on the plans. Those will allow any flood water to come in and go back out as required from FEMA. All of the mechanicals, including the electric meter, are above the FEMA base flood elevation plus 1 foot that conflict. All of that information is I know there was a question, someone had a question about the utilities being up above that level. But very clearly on the second floor plan, there are 2 large rooms that are clearly labeled utility area. So all of the utilities for HVAC, hot water will be included within those rooms on the second floor, way above the floor. Not even the first floor. The electric meter, has to be above flood as well. So the electric meter is on the southeast corner of the house. fed by overhead wires from a pole across the street. And there are notes, if you follow the notes around, you'll see that that will be above the flood plus the 1-foot freeboard is wet. So the current house is a one-story house sitting on the ground and is completely not flood compliant at all. The septic system is not code compliant at all. So the septic system is now code compliant with our CRAD approval. The flood is, or the house is FEMA flood compliant, which replaces a non-flood compliant house. And we're also substantially, in my opinion, much more conforming zoning wise than the existing house septic system. There is some information in the file. We did post a sign on the property, we provided a photo to staff, which is part of your file, so the public can notice properly. We do have the health approval that I mentioned before. There is a coastal area management, a CAM application with this. We did get some comments back from DEP, which are generally favorable. One thing I didn't mention yet is that the existing house is a 3-bedroom house. The proposed house is 2-bedroom, so we're actually reducing a bedroom within the house. Are expanding the floor area, but it is well within the allowable. So the current floor area is 13.8%, or allowed percent, and it's going up to 29.1%. It's still almost 11% lower than what zoning. So generally, in a nutshell, this is part of your packet, but DEP has some statements here. And it generally is favorable because the house is flood compliant. It's favorable because we're reducing coverage and allowing more infiltration into the ground and less runoff. And that we're pulling things, especially the septic, the leaching field back away from the house. So for all those reasons, they do mention something in here about the neighborhood being low lying and in a big storm. Roofs could be flooded. That's just the nature of the beast. The houses are going to be there. The neighborhoods are going to be there until the streets are raised to certain elevations. That's just going to be an existing condition. We can't change that with this plan or with the next city plans that come in. It's just an existing condition. There is one letter of support. I think this is part of the record already. Correct. From D. Francisco. So that's very brief, so I would like to just read that into the record because there's only one and it's brief. You have a paper copy of this. This is addressed to ZBA. My name is Steve Dan D. Francisco. My wife and I own the property at 17 Kelsey Road. We have been lucky to be neighbors with Liddy since 2017. Over the summer, they shared their hope to construct a new home on the property. After they had drawings made, they were nice enough to review them in detail with my wife and I. We received notice that they were now going before zoning board of approval on 9/18/24. They reviewed with us their desire to also receive a variance for their new home. It is okay with both of us that if that was allowed. We are happy to endorse and support this project and feel it will be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. Sincerely, Steve and Jackie D. Francisco. That is the immediate adjacent neighbor to the west. Right here, you can see on the plan, this is D. Francisco. We have the letter from your town engineer, which again, we already went through with the FEMA compliance. The fire chief had typical comments about fire resistant materials and so forth. And there was an email as part of the record from the owner stating that they would use fire resistant materials and comply with the request of the fire chief. Other than the residential sprinkler system, we usually have this conversation. Folks usually don't, it's not required building code, but everything else in the fire chief's letter has been complied with. And then we mentioned the health. So with that, I think I covered all the bases. As far, the last piece is the hardship. So it's obviously listed in your application, and I've already covered most of it. But obviously it's an existing non-conforming lot of record, it has a house on it. The house was built in 1962 before the tidal wetland buffer regulations. Since the house was built, that has obviously encumbered the property. I have to refer to the application to the exact percentage, but based on the yard setback encumbrances and the tidal wetland setback encumbrance, most of the property, is encumbered by setbacks. And really, to do anything on this property, you would need, variances. So just referring to that hardship on page 4 of 7. We get into those details, everything we've gone through. I just want to get into that exact percentage. So 12.9% of the lot. And what that is you can see the yellow yard setback, see the pink tidal wetland setback. Just this piece right here is the only buildable area without variances. And you can see the majority of the proposed construction is within that area. So that area, house, we utilize that to try to be as more conforming to your regulations. The second paragraph of the hardship, just want to make sure we didn't miss anything here. We talked about the existing house and shed are non-conforming to front side yard setbacks and tidal wetlands. The existing lot is non-conforming to coverage, FEMA, and Connecticut Health Code. This proposal eliminates the existing front and side yard setback non-conformities. You can see the shed is almost right on the property line. The existing home is beyond, the structure of the home is beyond the front yard setback line. So those are completely eliminated, not just reduced. In the back, these tidal wetland setbacks are reduced from the 7.3, improved to 26.2 to the closest point of the watertight tank. And then the house, you can see the back deck goes this far into that tidal wetland setback. And now we're the closest point we are 42.3. So reduce those, we eliminate the coverage non-conformity, we went over that before, 30 something to down to less than 15%. And also eliminates the existing FEMA and health code non-conformities. No new ones are proposed and no existing non-conformity is made with this application. So we think that with the new structure being health compliant, flood compliant, building code compliant, safer relative to fire, further away from tidal wetlands, leaching system, completely outside of the buffer, reducing that coverage, reducing stormwater runoff. We feel that this is a far superior plan to the existing house and lot. If you have any questions, I can try to respond.
At this point, I'll ask if any of the board members have any comments.
Well, the one thing I did notice is you're going from a seasonal to a full-time living, but then again, you're also conforming to what many of the others have done already, so. And you stayed within the footprint of what you had,
Mhm.
for the most part, so you've done a decent job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the seasonal year-round is not really a zoning related item. It's strictly a health code related item. And if we're not able to meet the health code, they wouldn't be able to convert from seasonal to year-round and use this as a retirement home. So that is one of the first things that we did to make sure that we can get that as code compliance.
Tom, do you have any comments?
Not ready.
Bert? Dennis, did you have anything?
That was it. You did a nice job.
You've done a nice job actually, being farming as you could.
Thank you.
Maureen?
Nothing to that.
Terry?
I just have one quick question from the DEP letter.
Could you speak?
From the DEP, and this is just for education, mentioned something about, I thought, emergency exits. And I didn't really understand what they meant by that.
So it's not specific to this property. I did touch on this. But I know I was talking fast, trying to cover a lot in a short amount of time. But they generally talk about, and then that's really the fourth paragraph of their letter. They talk about, it says accordingly, the board should consider whether the variances that allow conversion of the property from seasonal use to year-round use. That's not true. You don't get a variance to go, it's not zoning related. But regardless of that, he goes on to say, even if the residence is built to FEMA standards, constitutes a significant increase, this is for you to decide. Constitutes a increased risk to life and property during a storm or flood event, or only a minor increase considering the developed nature of the surrounding, neighborhood. So he's talking about the road network. So where the road's really low lying and a big storm that could be flooded. But again, we have less bedrooms that are here now. It's up above FEMA, so even if they were trapped in the house, the flood water would be below them, so it would be safe. And of course, the entire structure and the foundation has to be designed by structural engineers to withstand our 130-mile-an-hour wind tolerances. So it'll be a very strong, stable house, and it's more above FEMA than it has to be. It's a few feet higher than you need to get the garage underneath. So by doing this, it's one more in the neighborhood that's FEMA compliant, and we think that helps the whole neighborhood, and it's not going to help or hurt the road.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. I just have a few questions that you have in the comments, Joe. And the first two are really related. Was any other configuration considered so that there wouldn't be any encroachment into the wetlands?
You could probably ask Gene, because Gene, the owner, is a builder, and he designed this house and produced the plans that we have as part of the application. So he will tell you that we went through several months of iterations, and the house actually wanted to be bigger and encroaching. The very first thing when we met, we had said that the house has to be better than it is now. So that was the starting point. And there were multiple iterations where it was better than existing, but it was still bigger than what's shown on here. So we went through 6 iterations probably, and just trying to rotate the house and fit these little corners so they conform to the setbacks. And with building structural sizes and just getting nominally sized rooms and so forth, we felt that this was the best balance of everything, minimizing the variances requested. Just down to the tidal wetland setback, no other variance requested.
And what about the tanks? Was there any way that they could be located totally outside of the buffer? Could they have been moved closer to the leach fields?
So, as I mentioned before, there are certain separation distances that we have. Tanks, especially to get a code compliant system. For tanks, we have to be at least 10 feet to any property line, and we have to be at least 10 feet to any building. So you can see that the 10-foot side setbacks, usually we can't put it in there because we're less than 10 feet. In the front of the house, we have the front property line, we have the side property lines, and then we have the building. So the only place to put the tank in the front is where the leaching system. The leaching system is the only part of the septic system that leaks water. For obvious
And your
reasons.
tank, you said it's a sealed tank, so that works out good.
These are even in the table, in our key, you'll see that the tanks are to be certified watertight. So that they don't leak anything toward the well, and then that's on purpose for 2 reasons really, so that no groundwater seeps into the tank. And causes more water than it needs to be to go to the leaching field. And then also, so when the tank's filled, that they don't leak any water out toward the top well. So these 2 are in the ground, and they are concrete, sealed tanks. So they don't leak water, and there's no other place to put them. As I mentioned before, we got them as close to the house. We have to be 10 feet to the house if possible. And there's nowhere on the side.
And also, I think in your presentation, I believe that you confirmed that all mechanical and electrical equipment will be installed at or above elevation 11, pursuant to the engineer's review.
Correct. So I had pointed out the electric meter on there on the southeast corner of the house, to start, because that's an electrical feature, of course. And if you see here, the ground right at that corner of the house is around 7. And the meter has to be 5 foot above that ground from where it's being read, so that would put it at 12, so it's above the 11. The second floor plan on the architecturals that were submitted, I had mentioned this before, but just to show you since there's a question. On the second floor plan, you will see on here in the center of the house, on both sides of the stairs, not just one little area, we have utility area and utility. That whole center portion of the home will be, so the hot water tank, furnace, anything will be in there, which is on the second floor, which is several feet above the floor.
Is that confirmation verbally here significant, enough sufficient rather than having?
That's correct, and it'll go through an actual, through the building permit process, all this will be confirmed, so having it on the record now is sufficient.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to get a building permit to build this home if there was any issue with not meeting FEMA flood regulations.
Okay, and I just have one other comment or question. Mr. Lynn's comment about proper flood vents aren't shown on the architectural drawings. He asked, and again, I believe this came in today in the CAM paper, letter. He asked the drawings to be revised to clearly indicate FEMA compliant flood vents. I don't know if that's been done because you just got this letter today, but, will the applicant commit to installing FEMA compliant flood vents as conditions of
So they're
approval?
on the latest plans that you have. What had happened is when it was originally sent to him, the plans didn't have flood vents. When your engineer looked at it, we got a comment back about flood vents. Mr. Galletti went back, he added the flood vents, and then we submitted these after it went to CAM and went to DEP, so I don't believe he saw these. But yeah, clearly in blue on these plans, you can see all the flood vent elevations.
And is that considered as part of the record?
Yes, and the consulting town engineer did look at the first plans and the same kind of concept that they were not there. We directed him to the record plans, and he confirmed that.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions or comments.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like to ask if the staff has any comments.
Sure, I won't reiterate, Mr. Ryan's presentation, but I do want to make the board aware that there's several conditions under which the board may consider granting a variance. There's no hardship provisions, but there's also, case law that enables and supports the board considering granting variances for the substantial reduction in nonconformities has been presented here tonight. So I just want to make sure it's clear to the board that you are within, the rights sort of that you have to be able to consider that as part of a finding. And as you go forward to look, if you choose to go over to close the public hearing tonight and have a deliberations, we can assist.
And also, did you have a concern possibly about the old septic system? And also about silt fence?
So I had a conversation with Mr. Wren, late last week, and my understanding is that the old system, the leaching field will be just abandoned in place. And so there's no need to move silt fence or anything else around the exterior edge of that plan, because the land will be disturbed.
Yeah, we won't be digging in this area to remove it. There are just stone trenches there, which are allowed to just stay in the ground. There won't be any water going to them. They can just stay part of the earth. So the silt fence goes through this corner here, but there won't be any excavation there. The excavation will be limited to around the house.
Thank you.
And Abby, just to add to that, Abby also had a staff letter, which I know that you have as well, two-sided, which basically, just in a nutshell, says what you just said about supporting the application if you find hardship, but also even if you didn't find hardship, we believe that there's plenty of hardship on this lot. But even if you didn't find hardship, there are several, what we think are substantial reductions of existing nonconformities, including the health and FEMA ones, so that that in itself is a method to be able to grant.
At this point, we'll address matters related to the record. The matters that are in the record have been filed as part of the record. And I know this evening you had a letter read into the record. Is there anything else that needs to be read, that you wish to have read into the record?
I don't believe so. Everything from the health approval to the photo of the sign that was posted on the property, all the staff memos, we found all of this stuff on your website as part of the record, including the letter of support, I believe. So I think everything is currently in the record.
At this point, I would ask for public testimony, but I don't know if there's anyone here to give public testimony. Do I have to look at the motion to ask? I always like to follow the rules, but there's,
For the record, there's no one present on.
yes, for the record, there was no one present other than the applicant, the property owners, the board,
And,
and Mr. And
yes.
yes. So the next step is, the board will decide, if the public hearing should be closed this evening, and that involves the board deciding, if each of the members has heard enough, has received enough information to reach the decision. I'm just gonna go around and ask, Tom, have you, heard enough this evening to close the public hearing?
I,
Bert?
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, well, I guess I asked the alternates even if they're. What? Wait a minute. Okay. And yes, I heard it up to close this public hearing. So at this point, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing, for ZBA 24-2.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Dennis? And I'll second her, and. Okay, now, this is second on here. Is there any further discussion on the question of whether? Okay. Could you take a vote then, please? Which we just do it by acclamation.
It can be a majority, you can just.
Okay, all those in favor of, closing the public hearing this evening?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, any abstentions? Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Okay, the next matter on the agenda is, deliberations and decisions for ZBA 24-4, 10 Kelsey Road. There will be, because of the postponement to October 16, 2024, at the request from Ms. Bumbach, there's no decision, no deliberation of decision this evening. So moving on now to ZBA 24-2, 15 Kelsey Road. Joe, an applicant, Jean Giolitti, owner, application for certificate of variance of section 26.8.2, title wetlands buffer for replacement residence. Assessors map 69, block 66, lot 16, zone R10. The board has 65 days from today's date to close the public hearing and make a decision. And we heard a presentation from the applicant of the request for a variance of the tidal wetlands buffer. We heard how the applicant went through, took a number of steps to ensure, to try to reduce the present nonconformities as much as they believe they could. And documents in the record, and we discussed some of them this evening. Are there, at this point, I just would ask for the board if there are any further comments as we deliberate whether or not to approve this variance.
I have nothing.
Okay.
Bert?
Okay.
Dennis?
Did a great job.
Okay, and I don't have any further comments. And does the staff have any comments?
Only that should the board request it, we do have prepared for you a draft motion of approval, if you would like to consider it.
At this point, we necessary.
Sure.
We just take one and pass it along, and I'll just give you
There's stuff.
a couple of short minutes, while we look at this, and I will just remind, the board that the motions, are drafted as affirmative motions, meaning they are motions to approve the variance. Board members can vote yes or no, but it's procedurally, to draft motions in the affirmative. So if people want to take a couple of seconds to motion this stands. Okay, at this point, I will ask for a motion to approve ZBA 24-2. Would anyone want to make the motion? Would you want to include the language that's in the proposed draft motion?
It's the only reader.
Yes.
I move to approve the application ZBA 24-2 for variance requirement 26.2.
I think it's being recorded.
I move to approve the application ZBA 24-2 for a variance and permit of a 26.2 foot tidal wetland setback for a septic system and 42.3 foot tidal wetland setback for single family home where 50 feet is required. Pursuant to section 26.82 of the Clinton zoning regulations of 15 Kelsey Road, Clinton, Connecticut, as shown on plans, full site plan prepared for by Gene Galati, 15 Chelsea Road, map 69, block 66, block 16, Clinton, Connecticut, prepared by Indigo Land Design LLC, dated July 11, 2024, revised July 18, 2024, pursuant to the following findings of fact. One, the application has met public notice and hearing requirements for going to CGS, chapter 124. 8-7B. Two, the property is located in the R12 zone district, which is governed by department standards listed as in section 26.11 of the Clinton zoning regulations. This property is subject to the tidal wetlands buffer requirements in section 26.8.2 of Clinton zoning regulations. Proposed reconstruction of a single family home would eliminate the existing front yard, partially side and ground coverage non-conformities. Purpose number 5, proposed reconstruction of a single family home would substantially reduce the existing tidal wetlands buffer encroachment by increasing the distance from the nearest septic system components of the property of 7.3 feet to 26.2 feet from the tidal wetlands. Proposed reconstruction of a single family home will substantially reduce the existing tidal wetland buffer encroachment by increasing the distance of the nearest structure of the property 34 feet to 42.3 feet from the tidal wetlands. 7, the proposed new single family home will meet requirements of flood compliant construction pursuant to 17 of the Clinton zoning regulations. Number 8, the result eliminates the reduction of existing nonconformities to support the general health, safety, and welfare of the town in accordance with section 1.4 of the Clinton zoning regulation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Dennis? Is there any further discussion? Anyone? No? Okay, we do a roll call vote, please.
Tom Schultz,
I will approve.
Dennis Archer,
Approve.
Robert Corson,
Approved.
Bertram Schmitz. And Lori Jeffrey.
Approved. So the variance carries. The next item on the agenda is ZBA 24-3 CAM 15 Kelsey Road. Joe Rudd applicant, Jean Julie owners for replacement residence, assessors map 69, block 66, lot 16, zone R10. Does anyone on the board have any comments before we take a vote on this CAM? Bert?
Nope.
Dennis?
Nope.
Bob? And yeah. Also, there's a draft motion is Abby had mentioned, a draft motion for the CAM. And again, this is a motion because it's a motion to approve. It's in the affirmative. So I'll ask for a motion to grant ZBA 24.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Tom, in a second.
Second.
It's Dennis. Any further comments by the board?
It is just a point where, is the motion the same as it's written before the board, because that's not on the record, so we can write that into the record if we're the motion.
Good point, thank you. That's the time since we made the motion.
Sure. Draft motion for ZBA 24-3. I move to approve application ZBA 24-3 for a coastal site plan at 15 Kelsey Road, Clinton, Connecticut, as shown on plans. Coastal site plan prepared for Jean Giuletti, 15 Kelsey Road, map 69, block 66, lot 16, Clinton, Connecticut. Prepared by Indigo Land Design LLC, dated July 10, 2024, revised July 18, 2024, and adopt the following findings of fact. 1, the project incorporates reasonable measures to mitigate potential adverse impacts to coastal resources and future water-dependent development activity. 2, the proposed application as conditioned is consistent with the CGS section 22A-92.
Thank you. And I believe you had a second. Was Dennis? Any further comments by any members of? Any roll call?
Tom Schultz,
I vote for approval.
Dennis Armstrong,
Approved.
Robert Corson,
Approved.
Bert Schmidt,
Approved.
and Laura Jeffrey. Motion carried by
Motion carries.
0-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
You want your new home?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is new business. Group item, unanimous reminder for 2024 mandatory training.
Laura? You're hearing it. It's not coming across this way now. Here, speak a little louder.
Speak about
Oh, sorry. I hope what I said before was.
No,
Yeah,
just a little bit, but yeah, we listen very carefully.
okay. Something that I often ask people with that attitude, speak up. A reminder for 2024 mandatory training. Did you want to say something?
Sure, just to start you, all commission members have obligatory sort of statutorily required training components. So what we'll do is send out some email information about free webinars or other things that you can attend to satisfy those components. It's a 4-hour every 2-year training requirement, and so we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Folks have been sending in their blogs. I can share that with the board the next meeting if you'd like. Or if anybody has questions about how many hours you have accrued, that you can certainly give me, give me a call or send an email and let you know where you stand. But again, it's just a plug to, whether it's the land use trainings, fair and affordable housing training is one of the topic areas that's required. If there are particular topic areas that this board would like to see that we can bring in training to you to have at a meeting, if there's a shorter agenda, for those kind of things, we can do it as well. We do have a new town attorney, who can bring at some point to introduce you and sort of maybe do some training with his guidance as well. So certainly we can talk through that. So just put it out there and let us know our staff restrictions are.
I have a question. Who is the new town attorney?
Jeff Kennedy from Malone Watt and with Chris Wallace.
Can you spell his last name?
Kennedy.
Just like sound Kennedy. Same old thing.
There's some of those webinars are in the evenings or that's something you can just watch and.
There are on demand where you can simply just download them. You can essentially, once you've gone through those initial 3 months, I think they want you to try to find some new opportunities. Yukon Clear and other organizations are trying to put more content out there. So as new training opportunities come up, especially those on my webinar, so make sure we get it to you. We do have a limited training budget in the CBA budget, and as we get into next month, we're gonna be talking about budget for next year. If we feel like there's a particular need to up that to cover certain topics, we can do that as well. So, yeah, so I'll put together sort of a quick email to say, okay, here's some opportunities. If you take these things, what we need from you is an email verification, and if you receive it, the certification is temporary. The email comes from the training that you attend, and we just want to have a copy of those. The town manager essentially has to provide a report of these for our compliance.
Yeah, Abby, I'm sorry, I've done training, but I haven't reported. Who am I supposed to
Sherry,
to share?
give it to Sherry and give it to myself, so just
Oh,
talk to both of us in an email, and that's up to you.
Okay, sorry. I've been-
If some of us, like myself, already sent it into Christie.
Anything that had already gone to Christie is already in the law, and then those emails are being forwarded to me, so if you sent it to her within the last several months, it's already. I'll go through their totals for what's current right now.
Did anyone else have any questions about training?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be shared, like what our total report, but we need to ask for that.
I can just put together a matrix for the next meeting or email it out to everybody, that's fine too.
Correspondence? Okay. Addition to agenda for October 16, 2024 hybrid regular meeting.
With the exception of any budgetary requests that you'd like us to put into a draft budget for next fiscal year, training related, let us know. Otherwise,
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a move.
All right, Dennis? Second, all in favor? Thank you. all.
You know, gentlemen, over here.